Okay, so everyone, happy to see you there. And today we're going to learn something about Solidity VS Code extensions. My name is Stepan, and I'm a team lead ethical hacker and developer in Aki blockchain security. We are based here in Prague, and we are mainly focused to security audits and development of open source security tools, namely Wake and tools for Solidity, which we will talk about them later. And also we are teaching Solidity EVM and related security at Czech Technical University. Okay, these are some of our well-known clients. We work, for example, with 1inch, Lido, Safe, Axelar, or Rhinestone recently. And also we've received some grants for our open source tools. Okay, when it comes to Solidity VS Code extensions, we have to ask what are our requirements, because different people have different needs. So today we will focus basically on two areas. The first one is development. Are there any developers out there? Hands up. Okay, cool. So if you're a developer, what you need from the extension? Syntax highlighting, of course, to highlight, for example, functions, state variables, etc. Some code navigation to better navigate across the code, like go to definition, go to type definition, find all references, or go to implementation. Code completion, because we are lazy and we don't want to write every character in the code. Some code actions for fixes in the code. Code formatting to make our code prettier. And some refactoring features like renaming symbols, etc. And of course, we need compilation during development. Yeah, and finally, debugging, because developers don't like bugs, but auditors do. Are there any security auditors out there? Hands up. Okay, not so many competitors in the room. Well, if you're a security engineer, what do you need from the extension? Syntax highlighting, of course. Code navigation. And here comes the interesting part, static analysis. We will talk about it later in detail, but basically static analysis allows you to automatically detect vulnerabilities in the code and show them directly in the IDE, VS Code. And then these vulnerabilities can be highlighted directly in the code. And graphs, yeah, graphs are pretty interesting during auditing because they allow you to see the code in a different way, not just lines of code, but more visualized graphs. I will show examples on the next slide. Okay, and when you are auditing, you need to write some notes into the code and track the issues. It's pretty useful. And also, unit test, fast test, and test coverage. Okay, now let's take a look to the existing VS Code extensions which are available on the market. So the first one is Solidity by Juan Blanco. It's like a golden standard in the space. It's the most popular extension for developing in Solidity. It has more than 1 million installations. Yeah, it features basic stuff around the code, so code navigation, code completion, code formatting, and code actions. There's also some linting using solhint and eatlint. It has an integration with Etherscan, so you can download the source or API from the Etherscan, and of course compilation. The next one is Solidity Binomic Foundation. It's really focused to hardhat integration, so if you are a hardhat developer, this is the way to go. Yeah, it features also basic stuff around the code, so code navigation, code completion, code formatting, and code actions. Yeah, some refactoring features like symbol renaming. And there is also hover for the help. So when you hover over some parts of code, you can get a help or documentation, for example, for OpenZeppelin contracts. And compilation, of course. The next extension is Visual Developer by Consensus. The name is self-explanatory. It's very visual. It contains a lot of types of graphs, which are even interactive. You can generate UML diagrams, etc. You can also generate reports from your contracts, where you can see, for example, lines of code, lines of assembly code, number of public external functions, etc. It's pretty useful, for example, for estimates. There's also cockpit view, which allows you to navigate better in bigger projects. Outline view, where you can see all the functions, their visibility, modifiers, etc. You can also write your inline bookmarks. Actually, this extension was previously named Visual Auditor, and then Consensus renamed it to Visual Developer, so it's focused also to auditing. Yeah, code lengths, we haven't been talked about this feature yet. So code lengths are like little buttons above the functions or contracts, where you can execute some actions like find all references or generating graphs. And there's also integration with Etherscan, so you can see balances of the contracts, or you can download ABI or the source from Etherscan. The next extension is Slither, which is a well-known static analyzer, and this extension is basically the front end for it. So you can see output from the static analysis from Slither directly in the VS Code, and there is a what? Slither here, slide 12. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, you can filter issues by type in the extension. And yeah, now we can move to the next one. MidX by Consensus, it's also a static analyzer, but unfortunately it was discontinued recently. It was very helpful for our early auditing days, and also it was a great inspiration for us for developing Wake framework. So thank you, Consensus, for your good work. The next extension is not focused to the development or security itself, but more on more seamless auditing process. So it's a collaborative code review tool where the team of auditors can collaborate and make notes to the code. And it has a very good GitHub issues integration. So from the extension, you can create a new GitHub issues. You can mark reviewed files, and this progress is even shared across the auditors team. And also there are some daily logs when you can see your progress by reviewed lines of code. Okay, and now I would like to tell you something about our tools for Solidity extension, which is powered by Wake. At the beginning, I would like to shortly describe what the Wake is. We will have also talk about the Wake itself on Sunday, 2 p.m. at root stage. So Wake is basically a Python-based development and testing framework. It contains a static analyzer. There is also a lot of powerful stuff around fuzzing. Fuzzing is like putting random values into your contracts and functions. Then you run them for a couple hundreds of thousand cycles, and then you can discover some hidden issues which cannot be, they are very hard to discover by manual review. Also, we have an interactive debugger with detailed code traces. And finally, there's an LSP server, which is like a backend for our extension. And yeah. The clicker is somehow broken. OK. And now about the tools for Solidity itself. It's on the opposite front end from the Wake. So one of the main features is static analysis and our detections UI, where you can see your vulnerability detections directly in the VS Code. I will show it on the next slide. And you can see this potential vulnerabilities highlighted directly in the code. We have some graphs. I will show them on the next slide as well. You can see coverage of your tests. And also, we've recently introduced VS Code printers. And I will describe this feature also in a few minutes. Also, we have a basic stuff around the code, so code navigation, go to references, implementation, find all references, code lines actions, and compilation. OK, and now let's take a look to the detail of some interesting features. So this is our detections UI, where you can see the detections from the static analysis directly in the VS Code. You can filter them by impact or confidence. You can group them by detector or these criteria. And these are some of the examples of our two-dimensional icons. So we are evaluating impact of the vulnerability and how confident the detector is about this finding. So I think it's pretty clear: high impact, high confidence, high impact, low confidence, etc. And these vulnerabilities, as I said, are highlighted directly in the code. So we have underlined the part of code which can be potentially exploitable. This is an example for reentrancy. And in the detail, you can see from which contract and which function it is potentially exploitable. Yep, now here comes the graphs. Graphs are pretty useful if you are auditing bigger projects and you want to see the overview of the project. Here's the example for inheritance. So inheritance graph can transform this inheritance chain to this inheritance tree. Control flow graph. Here we have a simple transfer function when we changing the balances of sender and recipient. And control flow graph can transform this code into this graph. This is a pretty simple example, but for more complicated algorithms and functions, it's pretty useful to see all the executing paths of the code. Yeah, here's the test coverage, and we are supporting even real-time test coverage during the fuzzing. And yeah, VS Code printers, it's our recent feature in the tools for Solidity. And VS Code printers allows us to execute native commands in the VS Code from the LSP server. Here's the example for code length for public functions above the contract. So when you click on it, you can see public functions and you can navigate to them. And a lot of new features regarding the VS Code printers are coming soon. Okay, and today we would like to exclusively for the ETH Prague announce one new interesting feature. So let me invite to the stage Lukáš, the developer of Project Sake, to tell you more.
Hi guys, I'm Lucas. I'm an auditor and developer at Aki, and I am the developer behind our newest project, Sake. So to start, who here is familiar with Remix IDE? All right, I see that many of you know what I'm talking about. For those unfamiliar, Remix is a web-based code editor made specifically for Solidity development, featuring a very intuitive UI for, featuring a very intuitive UI for compilation, deployment, and interaction with your smart contracts on a usually local chain. So we loved what Remix was doing with the user experience for the developers. However, we all know that it can be a bit of a hassle to use multiple IDs for different development. And that's the reason why we started to develop Sake, which is a Remix-like UI, however, in your own VS Code. So to start, imagine you have a workspace with a few Solidity files, and firstly, you might want to start with compilation, right? Sake is able to automatically locate all the Solidity files you have in your workspace, and it compiles them all in bulk. We are able to do this because of Wake's underlying very speedy compilation. It also is able to automatically select the correct Solc compiler version, so the compilation is really as easy as it gets. Then, once compiled, you can deploy these compiled contracts on a local chain. You can deploy them on the local chain. Then, if we go to the Run tab, this is the place where you can interact with these deployed contracts. You can see a very familiar interface. We didn't really want to reinvent the wheel here, and since so many developers are familiar with what Remix provides, we decided to build upon that. So you see some information about your contracts, the addresses, the balances, some controls, and mainly you can see an interface which gets generated from the contract ABI, featuring all the callable functions together with their respective input fields. And you can use this interface to make seamless contract calls to the local chain. And get the results, call traces, events, and so on immediately back, and all inside your VS Code. Sake should be available later this year, I think, and it will be available as part of our already existing tools for Solidity extension. So if you are already a user, you can expect all of this to come to you without any additional setup needed from your side. Yeah, thanks to Stepan, and I will give him back the stage.
Yeah, thank you, Lukáš. I'm super excited to see these features coming to our extension. Looking forward. And now back to the summary of extensions we've talked about today. Every extension has some strengths and weaknesses, advantages and disadvantages, even ours, but we are working hard to cover all of these areas, development, security, and auditing, in our tools for Solidity. So the perfect one extension does not exist, and today you have a bigger overview around some of the most famous, popular, and you can pick the ones which suits your workflow. So thank you very much, and I would like to invite you, if you are interested in fuzzing. Today, Andrei has a workshop in Hacker House at 4:30, and Sunday, 2 p.m. at Root Stage, Michal will have a talk about our Wake framework. So thank you very much, and see you at the bar.